If you are new to this series, we have been going through every single national title claim in college football history for the FBS or highest level at the time it was claimed. At this time, we have covered all of the one-time and two-time champions and are moving on to the threes and beyond. Please go back and watch those for me after this if you enjoy this sort of thing. From here, some teams will still be lumped together and some will get their own depending on how much of an argument I feel is needed. So, let's get chronic. Prior to the college football playoffs and BCS national title game, we relied only on the polls to determine the college football national champion, with some formulas and short-lived systems in between attempting to better things. The polling system failed many times, with as many as 4 to 6 teams in contention that never even played each other. This often resulted in many split national championship years. Prior to 1965, some polls voted on their national champions before the bowl games were even played, and then saw their champion lose their final game. If you go back a little further, the first attempt to straighten things out came in 1936 with the creation of the AP poll, and was often the most respected poll for many years. But even then, the early media had their biases and favorites due to what they were familiar with. If all the writers and voters only saw Notre Dame or Yale, they would have no way to compare it to what was going on down south or out west, and usually just sided with what they knew. Prior to the AP, we had a wild, lawless 67 years of college football where many or no teams called themselves national champions, and a lot of those teams didn't even claim national titles in this era until more modern polls went back and retroactively named them national champions. Are you confused yet? You should be. While the AP poll is often the benchmark for a champion from 1936 to 1998, I would still argue that point. If the AP named you champion and nobody else did, that smells a bit fishy. Personally, I tend to side with what a majority of the polls say. So if the AP says you are the champ, but 11 others don't, I look deeper into the situation. And that's just me. You are free to do or think whatever you like.
Jerry, just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
And of course, I view any titles won through the playoffs or BCS title game as automatically 100% legit from the start of the video, even if you disagree with the selection committee. And yes, I have also disagreed with them plenty of times. On the flip side, any that claim a separate title outside of those official parameters I view as complete bullshit, whether the selection committee screwed said team or not. History is history, and I respect that fact, even if I dislike that fact. For the purposes of this channel, I'm only going by what the school actually claims. I will do a series covering unclaimed titles later on. I have added a layer to my tiers and now broken them down into 5 sections. 100% legit, debatable but fair, I see your argument but no, complete bullshit, and introducing 1941 Alabama, which will be reserved for the most imaginary or dumb claims that exist. Georgia Tech fell on hard times following the retirement of Paul Johnson in 2018, but appear to be on the way back up as of this writing in the winter of 2026. We will see how that statement swings in a few years. Despite what you may or may not think of them now, the Yellow Jackets have a rich tradition and an important place in college football history. They pretty much made John Heisman into the name he is today, and were even founding members of the SEC. And while you might know about the shared national championship claim in 1990, you may not know about the 3 from many years before. So buckle up and jump in that rambling wreck. We're going on a ride through history. And remember, the 3 unclaimed titles will not be mentioned here as I have plans to do a separate series. Let's start this journey in 1917, right in the midst of World War I. Led by Heisman in his 14th season, the Georgia Tech Golden Tornado had just come off of back-to-back undefeated seasons in 1915 and 1916, but both seasons did include a tie. And before we go any further, I'll remind you that rankings did not yet exist in any official format until the 1930s, so judging strength of schedule is going to be based mostly in opinion or by comparing common powers of the time. Anyways, the Golden Tornado went a perfect 9-0 in dominating fashion with eye-popping scores such as 41-0 over Penn, 63-0 over Washington and Lee, 83-0 over Vanderbilt, and 98-0 over Carlisle, who were now a few years removed from the Jim Thorpe years. 7 of these wins were a shutout, but a reminder that they were likely not the only ones to win a lot of games by shutout that season, as it was pretty common in this time period. The closest game Tech had all season was a 32-10 win over Davidson, and at a first glance, this seems to be a pretty solid schedule for 1917, especially the win over Penn. The other thing I did want to note that did just stick out to me is that the Golden Tornado played every game on their own home field aside from Tulane and New Orleans. Georgia Tech was retroactively named national champions by several organizations, and while 5 other teams had undefeated seasons to varying degrees of dominance, none of them claimed the 1917 title. This is 100% legit and is arguably the best team Georgia Tech has ever had, and Heisman himself considered it the best team he ever coached, so there you go. Next, we jump to 1928 under the guidance of yet another College Football Hall of Fame coach, William Alexander, in his 9th season. The 1927 team had been close at 8-1-1, so there were reasonable expectations going in, returning almost every key player. The Golden Tornadoes survived a tough schedule, undefeated with key wins over Tulane 12-0, Notre Dame 13-0, Vanderbilt 19-7, and Georgia 20-6 to finish the regular season 9-0. The team was then invited to its first ever bowl game to play Cal in the Rose Bowl. Georgia Tech won in dramatic fashion when the Bears' Roy Riggles ran 65 yards in the wrong direction for a safety and secured the Tech win 8-7. The team was named national champions by upwards of 9 selectors and co-national champions by 1. USC and Detroit were also named by selectors as national champion or co-national champion, and both claim it. In a previous video, I personally discredit Detroit in this season as I see your argument but no. Check that one out for me if you haven't already, there's some really good context. As for USC, here's where it gets interesting. The Trojans were once tied by Cal, the team who did go to the Rose Bowl. But why Cal? The selector for the West Coast representative for the Rose Bowl was a Cal grad, and he just picked his favorite team despite them having a worse record of 6-1-2. Now, considering there was a tie between Cal and USC, there's every reason to believe USC would have done just fine in this game. Considering that Cal had outgained Tech 271 to 189 yards, and in first downs 11-5, there's also every reason to believe USC would have won the game. But that's all speculation, and did not happen. So as it stands, 1928 Georgia Tech is 100% legit. One guy's bias robbed the history books of a prestigious matchup for the national title that this random dude is talking about nearly 100 years later. Alright, now we go to 1952, where we finally have rankings in some formal order, or at least more than we did. Yet another legendary coach and the namesake of Tech Stadium, Bobby Dodd, led the team in his 8th season. In 1951, the Yellow Jackets, as they were finally called, had gone 11-0-1 with a number 5 final ranking, so 1952 was looking very bright. And before I go any further, I just want to point out, as I am just seeing it, that the defensive coordinator for this team was Ray Graves, who would go on to be a legendary head coach at Florida, and the offensive coordinator was Frank Broyles, who would go on to become the most decorated head coach in Arkansas history. Amazing. Sidebar closed. Back to it. The Jackets cruised through the regular season with key wins over number 6 Duke 28-7 and number 12 Alabama 7-3, and other clutch wins over Florida 17-14, Tulane 14-0, and Georgia 23-9 to finish the regular season 11-0. They then defeated number 7 Ole Miss 24-7 in the Sugar Bowl to go a perfect 12-0. The team was named national champion by 6 selectors. However, 9-0 Michigan State were named consensus national champions, getting the well-respected nod by the AP and coaches poll. I haven't done a video on MSU yet, so I'll keep it vague. Both teams played 3 ranked teams, and all won of course, but Tech played 3 more games and played higher ranked opponents in those 3 ranked matchups. While I won't take anything away from the Spartans, I can't sit back and pretend that the polls got this correct. What else did you want the Yellow Jackets to do? In a rare occasion, I'm not accepting the consensus national champion as the one true king. For that reason, I'm giving Tech a debatable but fair claim. And I don't think it's even that debatable, but I'm going against the consensus here, so that's why I didn't go 100%. They should have at least called this a split. I'm fine with Georgia Tech claiming 1952. 1990. Boy oh boy, this was a wild year. Finally a year with a less than legendary coach Bob Ross. No, not the painter. This one went nearly 500 at the college level, but pulled a miraculous season out of nowhere after previously going 2-9, 3-8, and 7-4 in his first 3 seasons in Atlanta. The Jackets entered the season unranked, but after beating NC State 21-13, Chattanooga 44-9, number 25 South Carolina 27-6, Maryland 31-3, and number 15 Clemson 21-19, they rose to a number 11 ranking. Then came a devastating tie, 13-13 at North Carolina. Why we still had ties in 1990, I'll never know. You would have thought overtime would have been worked out by the 1950s instead of when it was in 1996. The team did not lose or tie again the rest of the season, and in that stretch, the strongest part of their argument occurred when they beat number 1 Virginia 41-38 on the road in early November. They wrapped up the season with a 45-21 win over number 19 Nebraska in the Citrus Bowl to finish 11-0-1. And if you know anything about this season, this is where it gets wild. Georgia Tech were named national champions by the coaches poll by a single vote that some speculate was Nebraska's Tom Osborne sticking it to number 1 Colorado and denying them the consensus. I went into Colorado's case in depth in their video. Please go check that out if you haven't already, but I'll summarize briefly here for Tech's sake. Colorado got the national title honors by most of the polls. However, Colorado was essentially gifted a win at Missouri on 5th down, suffered a Game 1 tie to number 8 Tennessee, and even lost Game 3 at number 21 Illinois. Now I know that sounds like I just shit on Colorado, but I'm not. They also beat 5 ranked teams and were a phenomenal team. Both teams played a ranked Nebraska with the Buffs winning by 15 and the Jackets winning by 24. These teams were a beautiful matchup for a bowl game to settle the dispute, but we did not get it. Just like I said for Colorado, 1990 is debatable but fair. There were so many angles where this didn't have to be debatable. Like, say, Colorado loses to Missouri, like they actually did by all means, except for the ref's error. Say Colorado beats Tennessee in overtime, Tech beats North Carolina in overtime, or the teams just play each other in the Orange Bowl. Or maybe those hypothetical overtimes go a different way, and we have a whole new discussion. Oh well, what a beautiful mess. Lately in this series, I've been ending with my thoughts on if I think the team in question will be adding to the trophy case anytime soon, like within the next 5 to 10 years. No. Brent Key is a great coach and is certainly taking the team in the right direction. He is also probably a coach they can have for his entire career if he wants to do so, as he is a passionate alumni. There are too many things in Georgia Tech's way, though. Things that have been in their way for a very long time. Recruiting is one half of the problem. They currently sit as the number 41 class of 2026 according to 24/7 Sports and number 47 according to ESPN. They have very high academic standards, and that's just going to limit some guys. The other half of Tech's problem is Miami, Clemson, Florida State, and Georgia. Granted, Clemson had an off year and Florida State is down a bit too. But do you really think those programs are going to stay down forever? I think not. Even if they did stay down for a few more years, somebody like Cal, Duke, SMU, Louisville, or Pitt could come along and derail an aspiring Yellow Jackets team. Miami is on the rise and will command respect for the foreseeable future. Georgia isn't going anywhere, and you have to end the season with them every season, which, if you get a win, is a great opportunity, but if you're sitting around 15 and hoping for an at-large bid and get a rivalry loss, that's likely to happen 9 out of 10 times in the near future. So that's a problem. Who knows though? Indiana should be an inspiration to anyone that good coaching and motivated players can get it done. They should see steady improvement for a bit. But do I see Georgia Tech adding a national championship soon? No. And there we go. If you feel I was unfair or missed a piece of info, go ahead and make your case in the comments. And remember, this is just one guy on YouTube who did some research and gave an opinion. I'm sure I won't change any fan base's opinion on the titles they choose to boast about, and certain fan bases have made that pretty clear thus far. This has been College Football Chronicles, and I hope you join me next time.